Hi everyone, today I want to answer a question that I've been asked so many times during my career and I have yet to actually speak about on this YouTube channel. And this is, if Pixar was so great, why did I leave? Well, let me rewind a little bit and talk about my history. So when I was growing up, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a lot of things I was interested in. I loved movies, and I loved science, and I loved music, and I loved acting, and I loved photography, and I loved being outdoors, and there was just so many things that I wanted to do, and to do only one of them just wasn't enough. Like if I was going to be a fine artist doing painting, I'm like, but I have stories to tell, and if I was going to do science, I'm like, but I have art to make, and there's just too many things. Luckily, when I got out of high school, I realized that animation was the combination of all of these things together in one, especially computer animation. It was a lot more inventing. It was very new when I graduated in the early 90s. And so I found a university where I could study computer animation. And I thought, this is really cool, this is cutting edge, this is kind of unique. This is a weird degree at that time. Jurassic Park had came out, there was a few little computer animated things, but not very much. And while I was in university, this kind of unknown studio from California came out with a little film called Toy Story. And it blew my mind. I wanted to work there. I was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And while I was in school, A Bug's Life came out as well, and like, man, they're using this technology and it looks so good, but they're also taking a new spin on how they tell stories. This is a new way of doing animation. It's not the classic Disney, which I loved classic Disney, but this was something new. I want to work there, and I worked my butt off in school. I was the valedictorian of my class. I had a perfect attendance award. I had, straight A's. It was really, really great, and I tried really hard, and I thought this is going to be easy. I'll apply to Pixar. This is going to be great. And I failed. In fact, I applied to 50 different companies and I heard back from a total of 0 of them. I failed hardcore, and that was normal. That's just this industry. It's hard to get a job now. It's even harder to get a job now than it was back then. But even back then, that was really difficult. As the valedictorian of my class, oh well, this is the normal experience of getting into the entertainment business. It's the right place at the right time. So I somehow, 6 months after graduation, found a really low-paying job, but it was in the industry. And so I just learned, and I kept learning, and every year I would apply again at Pixar, and I get rejected again. And I applied again and get rejected, and I apply again and get rejected. 6 years of applying every year. It was on the 6th time that I finally, all of those planets aligned, and I got into Pixar. So I went there to work on The Incredibles, and it was incredible. It was really amazing, and I was learning so much. Now, I had this goal since college to work at Pixar. Life was very simple, because it's like, I want to work there on their films with them. That's what I want. And I worked really hard towards that goal, and once I got there, that goal had been achieved. And I thought, if I could just work at Pixar, then I will be happy. That is my goal in life. And once I got there, what happened was I started to see more facets of life. I started to realize that life wasn't so black and white. I think it's quite common for most humans to have a view of the world that is very polar. This is right, this is wrong, this is black, this is white, this is my goal, that's it, that is all that life is. And as you mature and you go through it, you start to see more sides. You start to really understand the space a little bit better. So as I got in at Pixar, I started to understand that my life was more than where I worked. That the prestige of working on these movies was only one part of who I am. That my identity should not be Pixar artist. My identity should be I'm Jeremy. And that includes my family and my hobbies and my health and what I do, how I travel, all of my different facets of my personality is who I am. And my job at Pixar was just one little portion of that. So I stayed there for several years, and one of the facets was family. And I had a son, and he was 5 at the time. And we realized maybe he should get to know his grandparents and his cousins and his aunts and his uncles. And they all live 3,000 miles away on the other side of the country. So I quit to put family more of a priority, and we moved back closer to family. And it was good. And I learned the facets of that part of life. And I experienced new things, and I became a freelance illustrator. And that was great. I learned so much doing that. But that wasn't the complete picture either. And after doing that for several years, I'm like, I really miss making movies. I want to really be involved and I want to grow. I want to learn more about storytelling. This is really exciting for me. So we moved back, and we collectively agreed to move back to California, and I worked at Pixar a second time. And I worked on even more films, and it was great. And again, I was learning so much with the team. But as time went on, I started to realize that there was a lot more subtlety. So being at a company of 1,200 people, and you're working on these big projects, I was one little tiny cog in a much bigger machine, and I wanted to be involved in the storytelling. But the path to get to the storytelling there was really slow. This was one of the curses of Pixar, is that they're so famous that everyone wants to work there. I remember in like 2011, 12, 13, that they were receiving over 3,000 demo reels a day, and that's a lot. So most people, when they get hired, they're overqualified for these entry-level roles. Like, I have a friend who had worked on huge movies. He worked on Harry Potter, he worked on Avatar, he was a lighting supervisor, and he got to Pixar expecting that he could grow into a supervisor role, and the answer was, no, you're just gonna have to wait. He got in as an entry-level person, just like I did, back in 2003. Everyone starts at an entry-level position, and it takes years and years and years and years before you can grow even to a slightly more creative role. We're kind of a lot of button pushers there that are overqualified. And that was something that didn't rub well with me. That was something that I'm like, I want more. I want to be involved in the actual storytelling. And I had already worked at a couple of other smaller studios and as a freelancer, and I realized smaller teams mean more creativity. So I started to learn about myself that I like smaller teams. Pixar was great, super prestigious, really get it on the resume, but I actually like smaller teams. I don't want to have a lighting team of 50 people. I like having a lighting team of 3 people. I like being involved in the concept design and the planning and the lighting and the story and just kind of working on everything. So the second time that I left was when I left for good. And I realized that that was a chapter in my life that was amazing, but it was time for me to move on. And I'm so glad I did, because now I've been able to be involved in games and to be involved in television and live action cinematography. And I've been able to travel the world and work with a lot more people. I became a director of photography on a Netflix film. I've gotten to do so many privileged things because I left Pixar. And I left one dream to pursue another. As somebody, I give a lot of advice. This is what I do for a living now. I run my own company, lightingmentor.com. You can go to www.lightingmentor.com if you want to learn more about what I do. But I teach lighting, color, and visual storytelling and illustration, concept design, cinematography, composition, a whole bunch of different things that I've learned over my 28 years working in this industry. And finally, I get to live where I want to live. I don't have to live in expensive San Francisco. I now live in a small mountain town, and it's awesome. It's so beautiful here. This is what I want. And I have control over my time again. Nobody's telling me what to do. I don't have to work for billionaires anymore. I get to just work for myself, and my whole goal is sustainability. And this fits me. This suits me. I like this life so much better. Anyhow, I give advice. And one of the pieces of advice that I'm going to give you unsolicited today is that as someone who's over 50 and have lived a lot of life, that life can't all just be happy. Life is the yin and yang. It is the light and the dark together that makes up a complete life. No matter how much you try, you will never be able to escape pain and conflict. It's like the idea of lighting. Lighting doesn't work without shadow. So you have to have light and you have to have shadow, and together they can communicate 3-dimensional form to you, but they both have to be there. And I'm convinced that this is with life too, that there's good, happy times, and then there's struggle and there's hardship and there's part of the pain of life. And that is the human experience. This is something that we all have to go through. Try if you can, but I've not been able to escape that either. There have to be hard conversations. There have to be hard choices. Life is more complex than just black and white. There's all kinds of gray in between that you're going to have to struggle through to make choices of what do you want. And that is good. That's the way it's meant to be. This is the way nature was made. So just embrace it. Just make friends with your demons as well as your angels, and just say, I'm happy with whatever life brings to me. I can respond to it I can find joy in it, I can learn something with it. And that to me is the closest way that you can find a life that you'll be satisfied with and have no regrets. Thank you again for watching. I hope that this was a great topic. I think it's really interesting to just kind of share the true stories of like what life is really like. So hopefully that was helpful. Looking forward to talking to you again.